Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Let's start our video with a story in which we tell you how you can get back at your manager in cold weather. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Boss wouldn't let me leave early. I showed him the wrath of Old Man Winter. I'm sick and it's slow and really cold out at work, so I asked if I could leave a bit early. Manager said no. We're friends, so end of the night, when we both went out to start our cars, I let him go in first. Then I went into his car, poured a bit of cold water on his seats, turned off his heated seats, then cranked the AC. He thought it was especially cold, so he drove for 15 minutes before phoning me and calling me an a-hole. There's a special place for me in hell. And our second story. I don't know why your car won't start. So here's the dealio. My older brother is a huge piece of crap, like puts $200 of charges on my dad's credit card piece of crap. One weekend, he decided he was going to drive to Chicago to see his friends. He's very irresponsible with his finances and spends the majority of a paycheck in 1 week claiming it's for gas. Well, anyways, he barged into my room asking if I could lend him money. I refused, knowing full well I'd never see it again. He kept prying at me, trying to get me to agree. At the time, I'd just gotten my first job. I was 14 and didn't have a debit card or account yet. I only had cash. Sitting in my wallet was around $400 I'd earned from fixing computers for neighbors and friends. I wasn't going to give him any of it. Later that night, I was lying in my bed, eyes closed. I heard somebody walk into my room. I opened my eyes just a little bit. It was my brother. He grabbed all the cash out of my wallet. I didn't do anything. A few moments later, I heard him start his car. I figured he'd just gone to Chicago, and I was effed. Around 15 minutes later, I heard him come back. Revenge time. I heard him close his bedroom door. I waited around 2 hours until it was about midnight. I stuck downstairs, grabbed a flashlight, and headed outside. He'd locked his car, so I headed back inside and searched through my mom's purse for the spare. Sorry, Mom. I didn't steal anything, though. I headed back out and opened the car door. I popped open the hood and took a look at what I could F up. He was destined to leave the following morning. I didn't just want to disconnect his battery. I opened up the fuse box that holds the relays for the starter, and just about anything that actually makes the car run. Using some pliers, I popped every single one out, took them to the driveway, and beat the crap out of them with a hammer. I wanted to do something like put the bits on his seat, but he weighed like 210 pounds and could easily break every bone in my 140-pound body. Instead, I threw them out and waited to collect my reward the next morning. I woke up early, only running on 6 hours of sleep. He walked down the stairs carrying some bags, grunted at me, and walked out the door. I was on my phone, nonchalantly browsing Reddit. Around 10 minutes later, I hear his car door shut, followed by it opening, then the hood popping. At this time, my brother was pretty illiterate on how cars worked. The battery was connected, so he figured it had died. At 6 a.m., he effing storms into the house. My car won't start! Oof, maybe you could get Mom to give you a jump start in a couple hours. I can't wait that long. I have to go now. Though I was 14, I had a 2004 Ford Ranger with 14,000 miles on it. I'd been working on it for 2 years. That'd be mine at 15. He threw his keys down on the table next to me. What about the Ranger? Can that jump-start it? I'm getting more ideas how to F with him now. Probably. Well, help me then. I got the keys and backed it out of my garage into the driveway. I purposefully came out at an angle, missing his car by about 1/4 of an inch. He was so effing sweaty and angry, I backed up more and tried to drive around his car to get to a position where I could jump-start his car. Just as I got behind it, I turned the car off. I pretended to be surprised. I popped the hood and took the relay out so it wouldn't start. My brother came over in a huff. Me. It died. Him. F. He tried to start it 400 times. He never got to Chicago. He ended up towing his car to a shop where they charged him $900 just to put in new fuses. I never got my money back, but honestly, I'm okay with that. And our last story. Client tried to screw me by locking me out of my own system. I've worked as an independent contractor in the IT field for over 20 years, doing all manner of things from creating simple HTML sites to managing a big hotel's complete IT infrastructure. One of the many clients I had back in the day I was coding biggish custom websites was a rental company. Now I'd heard a lot of warnings about not working with this guy that owned it. He had a reputation that he was sharp as a tack, backstabbing and conniving. He was a lawyer after all. So I went into the partnership with that in mind. He wanted a new website for his renting gig, where people would list their home for rent, renters would sign up and pay a subscription to the site, and he'd get the whole lot. Nothing out of the ordinary there. So we make a pretty good deal on paper, we sign it, and I get started on the project. Coding everything in PHP goes well, but he demands suddenly that I show him progress only a week into the progress. He wants to see the website front now. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I tried explaining to him that the front-end work isn't scheduled to start until after 6 weeks of back-end programming, and that I only had pure code to show right now. The contract we signed clearly states this. He then gets on his high horse and demands that I put everything on hold and do the front end first, design, and then program. I, being really young at the time and fairly naive, agreed to this without asking for it to be added to the contract as an addendum and just started working on the design now. Now the contract stated that I was given free reign of the design decisions as long as I maintained the same color scheme and used the same logo on the site. So to make a fast draft in Fireworks, this was back when it was a macro media product before the Adobe acquisition, and within 2 days I show him. He's not impressed and demands a different direction and sets up a list of demands. I, as always, aim to please the customer and do just what he wants. I design a new layout with his list of demands, but he doesn't like that either. That's how the next 3 months go, a never-ending circle where he's never happy with anything. Now, close to 4 months into the project, he demands to see a working showcase of the back end. I point out to him that he changed the order in how the project was being done and had demanded that I do the front-end design first instead of the back end as stated in the contract, which he now turns on me and says, yes, the contract we both signed says you will have a working back end to show me at the end of the month. If you don't honor that, I'll take my business elsewhere and seek compensation for your lack of professionalism. Okay, I now have 12 days to do a back end for the site. So I get a friend to help me and we work tirelessly through the weekend and I have a good base to work from in 9 days. Mind you, at this point, he's only paid the security on the contract, about 5% of the total price, and has shielded himself from paying by hiding behind, well, if you can't honor the contract, why should I? Finish XX work and then I'll pay as per the contract. Remembering now all the warnings I'd heard about this guy, I decide to add a special function to the code just to be safe. More on that later. Now it's the end of the month, we have a front-end design he's okay with, a back-end that's been finished to about 85% of what's required according to the contract, and I still have 1 month left to finish everything else. Time for show and tell. Since I was working on this development, I was running it on my own dev server and showed him this in a browser on his computer. I mentioned to him that since I only had 512 kilobits a second upstream from the server, it might lag a little, but it wouldn't when it was put on the productional server he has his website on at his hosting company. He says that's okay, and the demonstration goes on. As I'm showing him the site, both front end and back end, I can see he's immensely happy with it, although he'd never say so out loud. He's trying to hide his smile that pops up regularly, and his eyes gleam with all the added ways he can now start making money. Anyways, he now says it's way too slow. This is wrong, that's wrong, blah, blah, blah. Client: I want you to put it up on my prod server and see how the speed is. Me: okay, no problem, I can make that happen. Please pay 50% of the contract and I'll get right on it. Okay, I wait a few days, then I get an email from him where he includes a forwarded message from the bank detailing a transaction from him to me for the amount of 50% I asked for. So I push the system to his prod server so he can take a look at it. Under beta.his-domain.tld, I then send him an email stating he can try the system with the supplied credentials. What he doesn't know is that I knew he'd been fishing around for another programmer to do this project to pick up from a lazy deadbeat who couldn't do anything right, so I knew he'd most likely try to screw me. What I also suspected was that the email he sent me with the transaction proof was fake, which it ended up being. ProRevenge 1. Remember that small function I mentioned? Well, what it did was if user X, his user, tries to remove user Y, my admin, from the system without one setting being changed in the config first, the system will first delete and purge the database, then remove all the documents in the web root. Well, not 5 minutes after he reads the email from me, he does just that. He tries to delete my admin user from the system to lock me out. Guess who has nothing of a project left? He does. ProRevenge 2. Since it's considered forgery to spoof an email, especially from a bank, I sent the information to the authorities and he goes under investigation by both the police and bank lawyers. ProRevenge 3. I sold the system to a competitor of his for a better price than originally contracted to him, and last I knew he was now blacklisted from owning a company, as well as he lost his rights to work as a lawyer. I only got that 5% he paid at the beginning, and for working for just over 5 months on this project, that's hardly anything. But the knowledge of his demise will keep my heart warm for the rest of my life. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.